Hey, crime connoisseurs. If you're like me, you love diving into a good book. I especially love finding a book about cases we cover. But sometimes it's hard to find the time to sit and read. We live in an on-the-go society. Thankfully, Audible makes it easy to instantly access the books we love without sacrificing our time. With over 180,000 audiobooks and more, you will undoubtedly find one that will grip you and leave you not wanting to pull away while still being able to do other things. You can get a free 30-day trial membership by going to audibletrial.com/ccpod to start listening to your favorite books. That's audibletrial.com/ccpod for your free 30-day trial membership. Hey, all my fellow crime connoisseurs. I'm your host, Grace D. Before we jump in, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for the support with the launch of this podcast. It truly means a lot to me and is something I've been debating on doing for a while before I decided to go all in. So again, thank you. Now for today's case. A young man gets into a fight with his parents. He's run off to his older half-brothers before, but has always come home. This time, feuds over drug debts, the destruction of property, and threats lead to him being kidnapped and held hostage. This is the case of Nick Markowitz. Late in the evening of August 5th, 2000, Nick Markowitz got to his home in West Hills, California, half an hour before his midnight curfew. When he entered his home, his parents, Susan and Jeff, noticed something bulging in his back pocket. They quickly found out it was weed, and an argument happened between Nick and his parents. Nick ended up running off after this like he's done before. Often, the 15-year-old would run to his older half-brother Ben's house and then return to his parents after a bit. Nick eventually returned home, and because it was late, his parents agreed they would talk in the morning. The following day, Susan was making breakfast, and Nick still had yet to come down from his room. It was around 11 a.m., and Susan went to wake Nick, but when she opened the door, he was already gone. Shortly before 1 p.m., Nick was walking down Inglemoor Street in West Hills, California. Here, Nick came face to face with Jesse James Hollywood, yes, that is his real name, Jesse Rugg, and William Skidmore. Hollywood and his friends were on their way to Ben's house to retaliate against him for breaking a window at Hollywood's house. Ben and Hollywood were friends at one point, and Ben would even deal drugs for him, but Ben owed him $1,200 and the two had a tumultuous falling out. When Hollywood saw Nick, he and his friends hopped out of the van and started beating up on Nick. As she witnessed this, Pauline Ann Mahoney was heading home from church with her children. She called 911 to report what she had seen and was able to take down the license plate number and provide it to the police. The LAPD officers who responded to the call failed to track down the van. Getting away with a clean break, Rugg drove the van while Hollywood and Skidmore sat in the back with Nick. Before leaving the valley, the guys picked up another friend, Brian Affronti, who also dealt drugs for Hollywood. When Affronti hopped in the van, he knew Nick wasn't there willingly. Hollywood kept threatening Nick, saying things like, "Your brother is going to pay me my money right now, and if you run, I'll break your teeth." Rugg drove the van up the freeway to Santa Barbara, where Hollywood and his friends had planned to go to a party. Hollywood made Nick empty his pockets. He took his wallet, his pager, which Susan was repeatedly calling as she grew nervous over Nick missing, and a bag full of Valium and weed. When they arrived in Santa Barbara, the crew stopped by one of Rugg's friends. Nick was taken to a bedroom, blindfolded, and bound with duct tape. It was here they had a party. 2 guys entered the bedroom during the party and were surprised to see Nick. They decided not to say or do anything since they knew Hollywood was involved. As Gabriel Ibarra, one of the guys who entered the room Nick was in, was about to leave, Hollywood approached him and told him, "Keep your effing mouth shut," while pointing to a bulge in his waistband. Over the next 2 days, Nick was shuttled from one house to another, often staying at Rueg's family home. Nick was no longer bound during this time and could move around freely. Hollywood and Skidmore left Santa Barbara after the kidnapping on Sunday the 6th. Hollywood and his then-girlfriend, 20-year-old Michelle Lasher, returned to the area and arrived at Rueg's house either Monday or Tuesday. I couldn't find anything that had a specific date. Rueg, Graham Presley, Kelly Carpenter, and Natasha Adams were hanging out at one point. Kelly and Natasha saw Nick and saw some scrapes he got from when he got kidnapped. Kelly helped Nick clean a cut on his arm. Since he wasn't bound and everyone seemed to be chill with him, there wasn't any reason for the girls to suspect that Nick was in any real danger. Later, the guys left, and Rueg brought Nick back to his house with him. Nick briefly met Rueg's dad, who thought that Nick was a friend visiting. On Tuesday, August 8th, Nick was moved from Rueg's house to the Lemon Tree Inn, a hotel on State Street in Santa Barbara. Another party was taking place here. The party was fueled with cigarettes, drugs, and alcohol. Nick and Presley decided to take a swim in the hotel's outdoor pool during the party. At the party, Rueg kept assuring Nick things would be all right, saying, "I'm going to take you home. I'm going to put you on a Greyhound. I'm going to get you home." Kelly Carpenter from the night before was at the party. She saw Rueg, Presley, and Nick and hung out with them for a bit. Kelly had this uneasy, anxious feeling about Nick's situation, and she asked Presley to go for a walk, to which he agreed. While on their walk, Kelly asked Presley straight up if they were going to kill Nick. Presley told her, "Oh no, of course not," but the mention of murder had in fact come up. Hollywood offered Rueg money to kill Nick, but Rueg said no. When they returned to the hotel, Kelly hung out with Nick and started talking to him about everything. She asked him why he didn't just walk away from the hotel. Nick told her, "I've taken self-defense and stuff. It's not like I couldn't do anything right now. I just don't want to. I don't see a reason to. I'm going home. Why would I complicate it?" Nick believed Rueg when he said he was going to get Nick home. Nick even told Kelly he would tell his grandkids about all of this one day. During the party, there was a knock at the door. It was Ryan Hoyt. He owed Hollywood money for drugs, and he also dealt for him. Hollywood would offer Hoyt different jobs to work off his debt. Hoyt had a Tech 9 automatic pistol with him. A few hours later, Rueg, Hoyt, and Presley put Nick in a vehicle and drove him to Santa Ynez Mountains. They went to the Lizard's Mouth Rock section, about 12 miles from the hotel. They took Nick into a remote campsite area where he was bound and gagged. Hoyt struck Nick in the head from behind with a shovel. Hoyt then shot Nick 9 times besides a narrow trail. Presley was waiting in the car at the foot of the trail when he heard blasts of gunshots. Rueg and Hoyt then proceeded to bury Nick in a shallow grave that was pre-dug by Presley. 3 days later, on August 12, 2000, a pack of hikers and a film crew producing a video were at Lizard's Mouth. While on the trail, Lars Wilkstrom, one of the 3 hikers, could smell the odor coming from the grave like a dead animal, only much more potent. There were flies all around the area, and Lars spotted what appeared to be Levi's jeans visible in the dirt. Being careful not to disrupt the scene, Lars photographed what he assumed was a crime scene while climbing on nearby rocks to get the photos. The hikers and the film crew cleared the area and went to where there was cell service to call the police. The first Santa Barbara County Sheriff's deputy arrived 2 hours after the 911 call. Deputy officers photographed the group and the soles of their shoes to compare with the crime scene and what they had reported with their encounter. Lars and the group left the area to make the 911 call to avoid disturbing the scene. However, they didn't think to leave someone behind to ensure that it wasn't tampered with while waiting for the authorities. After authorities arrived, Lars took more photos and turned everything over to the police for evidence. The following Wednesday, August 16, 2000, around 4:30 p.m., a SWAT team surrounded the home of William Skidmore. Police vehicles lined Cowboy Court. A crisis negotiator was brought in, spoke with Skidmore on the phone, and convinced him to surrender. Skidmore was one of the 4 arrested and taken to Santa Barbara County Jail. Also apprehended that day were Jesse Rugg, Ryan Hoyt, and Graham Presley, the youngest of the group. Jesse James Hollywood was in the wind. 4 months after Nick's murder, police were still looking for him. Hollywood had fled to Colorado, then back to the Valley, but the trail went cold after August 23, 2000, when a friend dropped him off in West Hills. In fact, Hollywood would remain on the lam for several years. The trials of Ryan Hoyt, Jesse Rugg, William Skidmore, and Graham Presley were all tried separately. In their trials, they all testified that they acted and participated out of fear of Hollywood. Hollywood was the leader of it all. They all testified that the abduction and the murder were carried out on the orders of Hollywood. Ryan Hoyt was up first and charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances of Nick Markowitz. Hoyt was convicted on November 21, 2001. He was later sentenced to death on December 9, 2001. Jesse Rugg was up next. He was charged with aiding in the kidnapping and murder of Nick. He was convicted in 2002 and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Rugg was convicted of aggravated kidnapping for ransom or extortion with special circumstances, but he was acquitted of the murder charge. William Skidmore pleaded guilty to kidnapping and robbery and was sentenced in September 2002 to 9 years in state prison as part of a plea bargain. Skidmore was released in April 2009. Graham Presley, who was 17 at the time of the murder, dug the shallow grave that Nick was buried in. Presley was tried twice. First, in July 2002. He was acquitted of the kidnapping charge, but the jury was hung on the murder charge. He was retried for the murder charge in October 2002. This time, he was convicted of second-degree murder. Presley served his time at the California Youth Authority facility until shortly before his 25th birthday. In 2007, after serving 5 years, Presley was released and became a free man. Santa Barbara Deputy District Attorney Ron Zonin prosecuted the cases. Zonin said in an interview, "You sit back and you say, but for this person, but for that person. Any one of them could have altered the horrible outcome of the situation by simply picking up the phone." On the run for nearly 5 years, Jesse James Hollywood was arrested in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in March 2005. Police found him under the alias Michael Costa Giroux by tracing his father's phone calls. Hollywood had changed his identity and received money from his dad every other month. His dad, Jack Hollywood, had been telling police the entire time that he had no idea where his son could be. When the FBI extradited him to the U.S., Hollywood was formally charged with kidnapping and murder in the first degree with special circumstances. In 2006, the movie Alpha Dog, based on Hollywood's abducting and ordering Nick's murder, was released. During filming, DDA Zonin gave documents such as probation records, police files, and other documents to the director, Nick Markowitz. DDA Zonin also acted as an unpaid consultant on the film. Zonin had already prosecuted and won the cases against Hoyt, Rugg, Skidmore, and Presley. Zonin said, "In the overall scheme of things, I want to put away the 5 people who murdered this child. Hollywood's trial was delayed. You see, this was the first time in U.S. history that a movie about the defendant and his crimes was made and released in theaters to the public before the defendant's trial even began. Hollywood's attorney, James Blatt, argued the court saying, "I feel strongly that my client could not receive a fair trial because of the movie and the pre-trial publicity." Zonin stated in court documents that he only gave the files to Cassavetes to help publicize the hunt for Hollywood. An appeals court removed Zonin from the case. But in June 2008, the state's highest court and the U.S. Supreme Court eventually ruled that Zonin and the DA's office could stay on the case. The trial was set to begin on February 19, 2009, but was delayed. 3 months later, the trial officially started on Friday, May 15th. In his opening, Hollywood's defense attorney, James Blatt, stated that Hollywood was not involved with the murder. Deputy District Attorney Joshua Lynn told the jury he would present evidence proving Hollywood was the mastermind behind the crimes, that Hollywood killed Nick Markowitz like he pulled the trigger himself. The evidence will show Mr. Hollywood is a ruthless coward. Ben Markowitz, Jack Hollywood, and others all testified how Ben and Hollywood had been at odds for months over a series of slights involving $1,200 in drug debt that Ben owed Hollywood, and a series of threatening messages both men left on each other's voicemails. Ben had also broken a window at Hollywood's home. Jack Hollywood, his father, Michelle Lasher, Hollywood's girlfriend, Casey Sheehan, who let Hollywood use his car, and Chaz Salisbury, the friend who drove Hollywood from Colorado to West Hills, were all granted immunity from prosecution in exchange for their testimonies against Hollywood. Michelle said she was still in love with Hollywood. She was uncooperative with the prosecution and cried throughout her testimony, saying she would never recover from her traumatic separation from Hollywood. She claimed not to know anything about Nick's kidnapping, but she remembered that on August 8, 2000, Hollywood told friend Casey Sheehan that the situation had been unwound. She claimed she later overheard Hollywood fighting with Ryan Hoyt, asking if he was crazy. Hollywood was then so distraught that his eye vessel allegedly popped. He told Lasher that he would not take her home. She eventually fled with him to Colorado, but flew back alone. When she came home, she said she suffered a traumatic ordeal with various detectives and the prosecution. Her most damning claims were that the prosecution threatened to charge her with murder, that detectives told her they would shoot Hollywood on the street once they found him, and that the officers who searched her home pulled her out of bed while she was still naked and held a gun to her head. Casey Sheehan was a friend of Hollywood's who lent him the car to transport Nick to Lizard's Mouth. Sheehan described a party that he threw for Hoyt the day after the murder, and he said he overheard an argument between Hoyt and Hollywood where Hoyt said he effed up, that he and Rug had a very heated fight. Hollywood had asked Hoyt why he didn't handle the situation as instructed. After news reports about the killing surfaced, Sheehan said Hoyt's demeanor changed and he was scared. He had told Sheehan previously that his debt had been cleared by killing the boy, but he never said that the debt was owed to Hollywood. He also admitted it wasn't uncommon for Hollywood to borrow his car. Uncover the secrets of your dog's DNA with Wisdom Panel, the world's leading canine genetics test. With a simple cheek swab, Wisdom Panel can reveal your dog's breed, ancestry, health traits, and so much more. Understanding your dog's genetic background can help you provide the best care possible. Whether it's identifying potential health risks, understanding their behavior, or simply satisfying your curiosity about your dog's unique heritage, Wisdom Panel delivers the insights you need. Their state-of-the-art technology analyzes over 350 breeds, types, and varieties and screens for over 200 genetic health conditions. Plus, their easy-to-understand reports make it simple to learn about your dog's genetics. Join the millions of pet parents discovering their dog's story with Wisdom Panel. Order your kit today and start exploring your dog's DNA. Because every dog has a tale, and Wisdom Panel helps you tell it. Go to wisdompanel.pxf.io/ccpod to learn more about your four-legged friend. That's wisdompanel.pxf.io/ccpod. Paul Kimes, an investigator with the district attorney's office, testified to impeach Lasher's claim that the prosecution threatened to charge her with the murder. He said that prosecuting attorney Almgren was signing Lasher's immunity papers at their most recent meeting. However, she was distraught and would not read her immunity papers to understand what she was signing. Kimes admitted the immunity could have been explained better. Kelly Carpenter and Natasha Adams, the teenage girls from the parties, took the stand in Hollywood's trial. They testified about the situation, Nick's demeanor, and their conversations with him. The girls both stated in their testimonies that on several occasions they tried encouraging Nick to leave, but he refused and said he didn't want to cause any problems and that he would stick it out for his brother. In August 2000, Chaz Salisbury went to his mother's home in Colorado and found Hollywood waiting at the doorstep. Salisbury said that he was shocked to see Hollywood since the two hadn't spoken since Hollywood moved to California years prior. Salisbury said that Hollywood appeared very stressed out and told Salisbury that he was in trouble. Acting out of a misguided care for him, Salisbury agreed to drive Hollywood to Las Vegas and then back to Los Angeles area. It was a bad decision, Salisbury said. He alleged that during the approximately 15-hour car ride, Hollywood slowly revealed how he had kidnapped the brother of someone harassing him. According to Salisbury, Hollywood initially wasn't sure what to do with the victim until he consulted his attorney at the time, Stephen Hogg. In what would become the most controversial part of his testimony, Salisbury said, the attorney told Jesse that he was in a lot of trouble anyway, and he should dig a deeper hole. Salisbury said that Hollywood told Jesse Roog and Ryan Hoyt what his lawyer had told him, and that Hoyt then volunteered to do it. The prosecution contended that Jesse James Hollywood called Stephen Hogg for legal advice about the kidnapping. When Hollywood realized how serious it was, he decided that Nick would have to be killed. Hogg testified that Hollywood came to his house on August 8, 2000, explaining that his friends had kidnapped someone. He also told Hogg that the boy was drinking, smoking, and playing video games with his captors. In Hogg's testimony, he said, "I've never heard of a kidnapping where the kidnappers are partying with the victim." Because of this, Hogg didn't believe the young man, whom he didn't know was Nick at the time, was in danger. He testified that he told Hollywood, "If your friends hurt this guy, or if your friends ask for money from him, they can get life." Hogg said Hollywood refused to go to the police. Jack Hollywood testified that he met with his son late one night just after the kidnapping at Lasher's house in Calabasas. Jack said, "He seemed very scared and confused, and he indicated that some of his friends were holding a kid, and they, he said that they were worried that they were in some kind of trouble." Jack also told the court that Hollywood refused to tell him where Nick was. Hollywood took the stand in his own defense. He testified that he fled after the murder and lived in Colorado, the Mojave Desert, and various parts of Canada before ultimately going to Brazil. Hollywood claimed that he didn't order the murder of Nick and that he wasn't there when the grave was dug, when Nick was murdered, or even when he was buried. The trial lasted for nearly 2 months. On July 8, 2009, Jesse James Hollywood was found guilty and convicted of first-degree murder by a Santa Barbara jury made up of 9 women and 3 men. This was a special circumstances case, so Hollywood faced the death penalty. He was also convicted of kidnapping, carrying a 3 to 8 year sentence. While deliberating for Hollywood's sentence, the jurors recommended a life sentence. On July 15, 2009, exactly 2 months after the trial began, in the Santa Barbara courtroom, after denying the defense's motion for a new trial, Superior Court Judge Brian Hill sentenced Jesse James Hollywood to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Hollywood is serving a life sentence in Calipatria State Prison. In 2012, Hollywood filed for an appeal. The appellate court took only 18 of the 90 days allotted to reach its unanimous decision. The 3-judge panel upheld Hollywood's murder conviction, denying his appeal. Jesse Rugg was eligible for parole after serving 7 years. When he went for a parole hearing in 2006, he was denied. In October 2013, Rugg was up for parole again. Governor Jerry Brown recommended Rugg remain in prison. The California Board of Parole Hearings took this under advisement, but granted Jesse Rugg parole. On October 24, 2013, after serving 11 years for his part in the kidnapping and murder of Nick Markowitz, Jesse Rugg walked out of prison as a free man. Nick's mom, Susan Markowitz, expressed her disappointment with the parole board. She said, "It just breaks my heart at the thought of the family reunion that will be taking place, one that I'll never have." On February 6, 2010, the Santa Barbara Independent published an article titled "Letter from Susan Markowitz." In it, she details the struggles all of this has been on her. Trigger warning: talk of self-harm and suicide are about to take place. In the letter, she says, "The first 6.5 years after hearing of my son's murder, I wanted to die, and I almost succeeded several times. 13 times I ended up in the hospital because of suicide attempts and depression. I hung on solely because I wanted to make sure there was justice for Nick. He deserved this and so much more. It was the least that I could do, but I didn't realize it would take this long. I am stuck in the past, but I allow myself to think of the future. The long, drawn-out court proceedings have somewhat been a blessing in disguise because they gave me a reason to stay alive. I felt I needed to stay alive long enough to see each one of my son's kidnappers and killers brought to justice. 9 years later, I still wake up every morning with a gut-wrenching emptiness. But I must continue to be strong and share the story of my stolen son and encourage people to think of the consequences before making a choice. Nick, I promise you will never be forgotten." On September 7, 2010, Susan Markowitz wrote My Stolen Son, the Nick Markowitz story. Jeff and Susan Markowitz's lives will never be the same again. They have since moved away from the area. In an interview with Jesse Katz of the Los Angeles Magazine, when asked to describe Nick, Susan replied, "The funniest person on earth. He just had so much energy. I don't know what was going on in his head, but he would do anything to make us laugh." In the same interview, Jeff says that he regrets kicking Ben out. He says, "If I would have held on to Ben and kept him in my household, he wouldn't have been on the streets. He wouldn't have been involved in, maybe, some of the other things that he got involved in. He probably wouldn't have met Jesse James Hollywood." Nick Markowitz was your average 15-year-old fun-loving kid who liked theater and sports. A group of individuals tragically and senselessly took his life. And that's the case of Nick Markowitz. But before we go, since this episode contained talks of suicide and self-harm, I just want to say that if you are battling with depression and the dark thoughts creep in, please reach out to someone for help. Call or text someone that you trust and feel safe talking to. And try going for a walk outside for 20 to 30 minutes to clear your mind and ground yourself with nature. I know when the darkness enters, it doesn't seem or feel like it at that moment, but I promise you, your life matters. You matter, and you are loved. That being said, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Crime Connoisseurs and click the link in the bio. You can submit case suggestions and find the direct links for the podcast to popular platforms. You can also find Crime Connoisseurs wherever you listen to your podcasts. In the meantime, keep it classy, connoisseurs, and I'll catch you on the next case. Are you tired of settling for subpar cat food? It's time to upgrade your cat's dining experience with Smalls, the ultimate gourmet meal for your feline companion. Say goodbye to generic one-size-fits-all cat food. With Smalls, you can rest assured that your furry friend is getting the nutrition they deserve. Join the thousands of cat owners who have made the switch to Smalls and see the difference it can make in your cat's health and happiness. Treat your cat to the finest dining experience with Smalls. Visit smalls.sjv.io/ccpod now to order your first box. That's smalls.sjv.io/ccpod. Choose Smalls because your cat deserves the best.